G'day everyone, Prep Aussie here, and I hope you're all well in whatever part of the world you're watching this video. Today is Tuesday, the 9th of October 2018, and the time here is 09:15 Australian Eastern Standard Time. Well folks, lots of major things happening around the world as per usual, and it is so hard to keep up with the news. Man, I'm actually trying to decide whether I'm going to concentrate on financial or do geopolitical, financial, but it's so hard to keep up at the moment. Everything's just like so I'm not really sure what I'm going to be doing in the future, and I'm also kind of worried that I'm not putting enough emphasis on prepping, which is, kind of what this is all about. Getting ready, because man, it's going to happen one way or another very soon. There's things happening around the world that are just pushing it closer and closer and closer. And I still firmly believe that regardless of what Trump says, does, means well, etc., I still can't see how he's going to get away from the fact that the elites run the financial world. So look, I'm going to have to make my mind up pretty soon about what I'm going to do, but having said that, let's move on. Before we move on, let's do the sponsorship. This is my sponsor, Totally Rawsome, and look, I've got to be honest, they're not so much as a sponsor. It's just that I love their stuff and I love promoting it because it actually bloody works. Look, if you haven't tried this stuff, get yourself some. Someone asked me the other day if they actually sent to America. Yeah, I would guess so. But look, I've tried different ones, different brands, because I was a little bit worried. I was thinking it might have been psychosomatic. But no, look, their stuff does actually work. And it's all about the golden activated turmeric. Have a look at their website. This stuff's good. I'm now giving it to my dog because he's got a bit of a hip problem and he seems better. So get some. Mad if you don't. Okay. The other day I showed you this grub. He's a federal MP, Stuart Robert. Now, it's gotten worse because this guy spent $18,000 on, this is on top of the $2,000 or nearly $3,000 for his home internet. And now we find out that he's actually spent $20,000 of taxpayers' money on stationery. What is going on in this country? Now, this guy's the local member for Fadden. Federal member for Fadden, which is the higher Gold Coast. I'm in the southeast Gold Coast. He's up on Redland Bay area that way. If you're listening to this show, if you're in his constituency, you need to start knocking on this guy's door and saying, "Hey mate, what the fucking hell are you doing? This is our money that you're absolutely abusing." This dog, for want of a better term, is actually just 100% ripping people off. He's not there for you. He's not there for me. He's not there for anyone else except himself and money. And he's absolutely ripping people off. This is a joke. Absolute joke. And people wonder why we've got no respect for politicians anymore. If you're in his constituency, you need to start speaking up about this guy. Okay, financial. This is a bit of a worry. And look, as I said to you guys, the Australian dollar is going to drop to record lows. Could even go as far as, 50 cents. And that may sound like total bullshit, but it's not. We are going to be physically broken. The only thing that's holding Australia up at the moment is the fact that we're selling our iron ore off at standard rates at the moment, which is above $100 a tonne. So we're getting that income to mitigate, that's a big word for an Aussie, mitigate the problems with the falling dollar. But folks, things are going to start getting expensive real soon. If you're like me and you go down the petrol station to fill up the diesel every now and again, you'll notice that it's actually jumped 15 cents again lately. And can I just point out that Coles, i.e. Shell, is just, if you're shopping there, you need to not shop there, because those guys are just blatantly price gouging. I went to Matilda, which is now Puma, down the road from me, and they were 15 cents cheaper than Shell, which was literally just around the corner. Price gouging like crazy. But as per usual, here in Australia, we don't say anything and no one does anything. So it's all tickety-boo. Thank you very much for ripping us off, Mr. Shell. As I said, this is going to start getting worse. Incrementally, it's going to start getting worse. You're going to start seeing companies go bust soon because of this stuff. And that's, once again, not hyperbole. You just need to be aware that this is happening now. Why has the Aussie dollar fallen? With rising US interest rates, the greenback becomes a more attractive investment as traders sell off their holdings in emerging markets currencies, and that's exactly what's happening. Last week, and as I said, India's rupiah sunk to an all-time low against the US dollar, and the Indonesian fell to a 20-year low. The Australian dollar is seen as a proxy for emerging market economies and has also been sold off, but its descent has been nowhere near as severe, but it's going to be, folks. We just can't hold the gate, stop the stampeding horses anymore. Yeah, there's nothing you, me, or anyone else can do about this. Those days are long gone. These guys are physically going to break everybody. You know, you can try as hard as you can, I guess. The only way you can really protect yourself, as I've said from day one, is buy silver and gold. And, you know, how much do you buy? I only recommend, you know, one ounce of each. But if you got money, see, because the problem is, how are you going to store it? You know, you've got to think security. You buy a gold bar. If you can afford to buy a gold bar, by all means do so. But remember, with the gold bar comes security. You have to think security, protection, safe, how you're going to store it. You know, all these things you just have to think about, folks, because when this all comes tumbling down, it's going to be bad. And like I said to you, you know, your next door neighbour might be the best bloke you've ever met. But find out what he's like after he hasn't eaten for 5 days. That's my point. You know, people are going to turn ugly even if they don't want to. And if they've got young children, they're going to get even uglier. So just think about all these things, please, you know. And here's another article from the ABC. Fears of trade war impact on China's economy spread to Wall Street. Well, look, Trump is not going to stop. And he can't. He needs to physically break China. And the only way he can do that is by doing exactly what he's doing. And he will physically break them if he keeps on going, because, look, you're all intelligent. he's got two choices. He can send in planes, boats, etc., and stomp on them pretty hard. But these type of people think logically a good way ahead of us. How can he turn the Chinese people onto the Chinese government? Make them starve. So basically what this is all about is a war by proxy on the Chinese government. And if you've noticed, Trump says it quite sarcastically now on the dictator for life, or the chairman for life, President Xi Li, or whatever his name is, who's made himself president for life. Did you know that? So you've now got a full-blown dictatorship running China. So, and they're getting more and more aggressive. Well, how do you nip that in the bud? Pretty easily. You just starve everybody. Trump is going to physically break China. That's his aim. That's their aim. It's not just Trump's aim. It's the people who are backing Trump. There's no need to go and send in bombers and all this sort of stuff at the moment. Just cut the party off at the knees. Make the lower level people starve, start to get frustrated and annoyed and blah, 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 and then watch them turn on their masters. That's where this is going. Yeah, it's sad and all that sort of stuff, but what would you prefer? Bombs? It's just... I was listening to something yesterday about intellectual property rights. There is now nothing that's made around the world that China has not stolen. Think about that. Look at the Oppo phone, look at the iPhone. Look, there's just thousands of bits and pieces that you can actually look at and know that they're ripping people off. It's that bad. So my point here being, it's going to get worse. Trump's not going to stop. China's already given in on a few things. Every single country that Trump has backed into a corner as regards to trade has had to give in. 100%. So think about that. Doesn't mean that this isn't going to stop. This isn't the stock market's not going to crash, etc. That's all going to happen. And as I said, today is the 9th, which is the 8th in America. And by the Jewish calendar, the 9th and the 10th are the days of Noah's great flood. So let's see what happens tomorrow on the 9th, or this evening, the 9th in America. 9th and the 10th, they're the days to look at. And I'll do this one as the final one, folks. Cold War mentality. China hits back at Concita Vanti Wells over Pacific Aid opinion piece. Basically, as I said many weeks ago, China is now loaning billions, and I mean billions, to these countries like Nauru, Papua New Guinea, Timor. Anywhere they can put money, they're putting it. And I believe it was Vanuatu. What's the term? Reneged on their deal, and the Chinese government now own their airport and their airport and their port. I believe it's happening all around the world, folks. Just pay close attention to what China is actually owns now. They're giving money to these countries knowing that they cannot pay it back, and then they're just taking stuff. So it's becoming extremely worrisome what these guys are doing around the Pacific. Thankfully, people are starting to prick their ears up and start saying, well, hang on a minute, what's going on here? It was all a bit clandestine. A lot of people don't know this. Although Papua New Guinea is a country on its own, it was only given sovereignty, I think it was 1972, 74, from Australia. And did you also know that the longest serving border with troops on it is, guess where? Papua New Guinea and Irian, or West Papua. Is that what it's called? Something like that. So the Australians have had a force there since after the war, and they haven't left. So there's always a permanently manned force in that area. So, not that that means anything to this, I'm just explaining that. But China has recently started to really get into Papua New Guinea about loans. They're giving Papua New Guinea money for everything. Anything they want, they just give them money. Now, you don't have to be Einstein to work out that the Australian government, even though our politicians are as thick as two bricks, should be worried about that. And quite rightly. You know, you can literally walk from Papua New Guinea to Australia. And having said that, the Chinese own Darwin, the port of Darwin. Yeah, so that's a bit of a misnomer. You know, it's all crazy shit. Right, there's one bloke who keeps writing to me to explain about the Brisbane line. Now, for everyone who doesn't know what the Brisbane line is, I'm going to explain it to you. If you're all in America, it's actually one of the few very, very bitter memories we have of the Second World War as regards to our involvement and us being an ally. What happened was Singapore got taken by the Japanese, and then Papua New Guinea, the top end, sort of the northern end, for want of a better term, of Papua New Guinea got taken by the Japanese. And Australia turned to the Americans and said, please send us troops, we need help. I'm paraphrasing a bit here, folks, just work with it. The Americans turned around, called the Australian Prime Minister into a meeting where he was given a map of Australia with a line drawn through it, which went straight through Brisbane and straight across the country. And he was told by MacArthur that who was actually in Australia at the time as a base, when the Japanese got to Brisbane, then the Americans would act. The Australian Prime Minister at the time, even though I wasn't in the meeting, apparently said something along the lines of, thanks very much, go fire truck yourself, and it immediately called back Australian troops from Africa and some from Europe. I believe it was mainly from the African troops. Now, things had gotten so serious at that time of invasion here in Australia. Darwin was getting bombed every second day by the Japanese. And the Japanese were taking over Papua New Guinea. And in one of the greatest things in our country's history, the only thing Australia had to send up against the Japanese was, for want of a better term, all the army misfits. That was basically blokes who failed their medicals, but they were working as a territorial army here. And they had no choice but to send those guys up there to stop the Japanese. And if you ever want to see, and it's widely regarded as the most horrendous fighting of the Second World War, it was basically, most of it was hand-to-hand combat. And what those guys did, those Aussies, those Australian soldiers did, was nothing short of miraculous. And they're given a lot of credit. And in my opinion, here in Australia, they're not given enough credit for the people they were and what they did and what they went through. Those guys were literally sacrificing themselves. You know, turning to their mates and saying, well, say good day to everyone back home for me. See you later. Going out and, hand-to-hand combat with Japanese. It was that bad. And if you want to read up about it in your American app, read up about the Kokoda Trail. It's quite staggeringly bad. Inspiring, but just makes you realise the full horror of war. So that is the Brisbane line. I'm not going to go on about it anymore. It was many, many years ago, but it still sticks in the Australians' craw as regards to that. There is one other caveat to that. At the same time, when the Australians were being sent to Papua New Guinea, they were coming out on trains, and some smart-ass Americans were on the trains coming in, and they said, "Don't worry, fellas, we'll look after your girls," apparently, and the Australians opened up on them. Killed a lot of them, actually. Killed quite a few of them. You can read up about that as well if you want. So there was kind of no love lost there for a while between the Australians and the Americans, even though we were allies. So that's all that saga. Please don't write to me about the Brisbane line anymore. I can tell you right now that if the Chinese do invade Australia, then they will get to Brisbane, and that will be the stopping point, unfortunately, because there's nothing to stop them coming down. And I would half expect them to become allies with Indonesia to invade Australia, which they can. But listen, and listen well, if you're Chinese. We will make you suffer like you've never suffered in your life if you do. We will drag you out into the desert and you will die by the thousands. I wouldn't do it if I was you. We're a lot more resilient here in Australia than you think. So just a word of warning. Anyway, folks, on that somber note, let's do the prayers. And folks, I'm going to dedicate the verse of the day and the Lord's Prayer today to a good friend of mine, Cindy in America, who's just found out her dad's got pretty bad kidney cancer, lung cancer, I believe. So our thoughts and prayer go out with you, Cindy. Verse of the day. I, even I, am the Lord, and apart from me there is no Saviour. I have revealed and saved and proclaimed. I, and not some foreign god among you. You are my witnesses, declared the Lord, that I am God. And as I said, the Lord's Prayer for Cindy's dad. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. All right, folks. God bless. Prep out.